Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. One of the questions I get asked most often is, who do you like better, NASA or SpaceX? Okay, here's the deal. You can't watch this video unless you've watched my other video, SpaceX versus NASA. Is that even a fair question? Seriously, you can't! I forbid it! I'll wait here until you watch that first. It's honestly the only fair way to paint the full pictures of these two entities. Okay, now that you've watched that, although I don't think it's fair to compare a government agency to a private company in general, there is one thing we can truly compare apples to apples. Or shall I say rockets to rockets. And that's rockets. Wait. So in this video, we're going to look at some rockets past, present, and future from SpaceX and NASA and check out their capabilities, their costs, and their overall designs in an attempt to really help compare the two. So, NASA rockets versus SpaceX rockets. Considering what we learned in that last video, this one might get interesting. Let's get started.
3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Alright, since in our last video we helped establish the differences as well as the relationship between NASA and SpaceX, in that video you certainly should have watched by now, it's time we compare the rockets of NASA versus the rockets of SpaceX. So for starters, let's compare the two partially reusable launch vehicles that have similar capabilities. NASA's Space Shuttle and SpaceX's Falcon Heavy. I don't think the Space Shuttle needs much of an introduction, but let's tee it up like this. The Space Shuttle is a gorgeous, reusable-ish spaceplane that launched between 1981 and 2011. There were 5 operational shuttles that flew during that 30-year span, covering 135 missions. The final design of the Space Shuttle was chosen by NASA based off a proposal submitted by North American Rockwell in 1972. The orbiters would be built by Rockwell International, which was later purchased by Boeing. The external tanks by Martin Marietta, which later merged with Lockheed. The SRBs by Thiokol, later Morton Thiokol, and finally ATK Thiokol. Wait, which now is Orbital ATK, and hold on, but now that's Orbital ATK, a space division of Northrop Grumman. This is harder to keep track of than a royal family. Okay, anyway, where were we? Oh yeah, the Space Shuttle. I can't even watch videos of it without getting a little emotional. It really is beautiful and awe-inspiring. And for SpaceX, we have the Falcon Heavy. Do we really even need to explain the Falcon Heavy? I feel like that's all we ever talk about these days, but okay. Here's a quick version. Falcon Heavy is SpaceX's third launch vehicle, which is up to almost 90% reusable. It's basically 3 of their Falcon 9 rockets put together to form a heavy lift launcher. Its first launch was on February 6, 2018, and put Elon Musk's personal Tesla in deep space. The mission was a huge success. Not only for landing 2 out of the 3 boosters, or by creating the coolest and most awe-inspiring images of a straight-up car in space, but also by making a giant display of a spaceflight event arguably for the first time in the 21st century. Falcon Heavy really created some buzz. I did a video about my experience seeing Falcon Heavy from only 3 miles away and answering the questions of why. Why Falcon Heavy and why a Tesla in space? It's one of my favorite videos, so if you haven't already watched it, definitely check it out. Okay, it's numbers time! The Space Shuttle stood at 56 meters or 184 feet tall, which isn't that much taller than just the first stage of the Falcon Heavy, which altogether stands at 70 meters or 230 feet tall. The Space Shuttle's diameter is kinda hard to measure. The big orange external fuel tank measured 8.4 meters or 27.5 feet wide. The orbiter itself had a wingspan of 23.7 meters or 78 feet, and each of the white solid rocket boosters on either side of that orange fuel tank were 3.7 meters or 12 feet wide. And believe it or not, that's the exact same diameter of the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy cores. Obviously, the Falcon Heavy has 3 cores, so altogether it's 12.2 meters or 40 feet wide. Next, let's compare the thrust of the two vehicles. The Space Shuttle was crazy powerful. More specifically, those massive solid rocket boosters were crazy powerful. Combined, the 2 solid rocket motors produced 25,000 kilonewtons or 5.6 million pounds of thrust. Then the Space Shuttle had 3 main liquid engines known as RS-25s, which produced another 5,200 kilonewtons or 1.2 million pounds of thrust for a total of 30,200 kilonewtons or 6.8 million pounds of thrust. Then Falcon Heavy. Although the most powerful rocket currently flying, it's a fair amount less powerful than the Space Shuttle, with a total of 22,800 kilonewtons or 5.1 million pounds of thrust. In the grand scheme of rockets that have flown, the Falcon Heavy is only the 5th most powerful, coming in after the Soviet Union's N-1 moon rocket, which technically flew, but all 4 flights ended in a rapid unscheduled disassembly, NASA's Saturn V moon rocket, the Soviet Union's Energia rocket, which carried the Buran space shuttle, and lastly, the United States' space shuttle. Don't get me wrong, the Falcon Heavy's amazing, but it's easy to forget about the giants that preceded it. So who cares about thrust? What's the actual capability of the vehicles? Well, the space shuttle was kind of weird, because technically, it could get the orbiter, which weighed 68,500 kilograms or 151,000 pounds empty, plus up to 27,500 kilograms or 60,000 pounds of payload into orbit. But since the orbiter portion wasn't part of the payload, we'll have to stick with that 27,500 kilogram payload capacity, as that's what was actually delivered to space. The Falcon Heavy, on the other hand, can put 63,800 kilograms or 140,000 pounds into orbit when fully expendable, which it probably won't do very often. When all 3 cores are to be recovered, which it sounds like they'll probably do most of the time, the payload capability is about half that, so around 30,000 kilograms or 66,000 pounds into low Earth orbit. And since the whole point of the Falcon Heavy is to reuse as much of the vehicle as possible, let's go ahead and quote that 30,000 kilogram as its usable payload to orbit. So how about price? I'm sure we have an idea where this is going. Although the Space Shuttle was able to reuse many of its components, due to massive refurbishment costs, paying for the safety and the redundant hardware required for humans on cargo, and design compromises, the Space Shuttle wound up being very, very expensive. It's hard to really get an exact number on this, but the entire shuttle program cost $210 billion to design, manufacture, run, maintain, and fly. Divide that by the 135 missions, and you get a cost of around $1.5 billion per launch. Okay, that might be unfair, considering that's not the price tag a customer looking to launch on the Space Shuttle would pay. The sticker price for a Space Shuttle was quoted at about $450 million per mission. The Falcon Heavy, on the other hand, has a sticker price of only $90 million when being reused, but it might cost up to about $150 million if being expended. So we're gonna stick to that $90 million reusable price, as that's what we're quoting for payload capability. Last, let's compare the price per kilogram ratio of each vehicle. The Space Shuttle, if we're quoting the launch cost of $450 million and a 27,500 kilogram payload, comes in at $16,363 per kilogram. The Falcon Heavy, on the other hand, at a launch cost of $90 million and 30,000 kilogram payload capability, comes in at $3,000 per kilogram. Whoa. So more than 5 times cheaper. Despite the Space Shuttle aiming to bring the cost of space down by being reusable, it took until a private company used 21st century innovation, cost-cutting manufacturing techniques, and potentially reckless amounts of tweaking to actually make that dream a reality. Next, let's compare 2 upcoming launch vehicles from both NASA and SpaceX. NASA's next generation launch vehicle is called SLS, or the Space Launch System. SLS is NASA's push to get humans back into deep space for the first time since the Apollo missions. Its design is rather interesting, mostly utilizing Space Shuttle era components. As a matter of fact, you can literally see the Space Shuttle everywhere you look. That big orange fuel tank is essentially just a stretched version of the shuttle's external fuel tank. The 4 main engines are literally reused RS-25 engines from previously flown shuttle missions, and those massive solid rocket boosters on the sides are 5-segment versions of the 4-segment boosters used on the shuttle. The upper stage, at least for the Block One version currently being built, is the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, which is pretty much just the upper stage of ULA's Delta IV with a single RL-10 engine. By the way, the RL-10 engine is crazy efficient and super awesome, albeit super expensive. This Block One will fly with NASA's Orion spacecraft, a bigger and deep space ready follow-up to the Apollo spacecraft, rated to actually get humans to Mars. Yes. We hope to see the first flight of the SLS in 2020 with the first exploration mission, or EM-1. SpaceX's upcoming rocket is the BFR, or Big Falcon rocket. The BFR is essentially SpaceX's Mars rocket, capable of sending up to 100 people to Mars and back. This thing is full-blown nuts. The booster portion of the rocket will have 31 methane-powered Raptor engines and will be fully reusable. The upper stage spaceship portion will have 4 vacuum-optimized Raptor engines and 3 sea-level ones for a total of 7. The ship is primarily made of an advanced carbon composite material and is designed to be fully reusable. So much so that SpaceX envisions it being used as a point-to-point transportation system here on Earth. We've previously done a really deep rundown on the BFR and compared it to some other rockets, so if you want to learn more about its development, be sure and check out this video. SpaceX hopes to test the BFR in 2019 and flying it by 2020. That's pretty ambitious, even for SpaceX. So let's start with Block 1 of SLS, since that's what we know will for sure fly here soon. Sls Block One will stand at 98 meters or 322 feet tall. Not bad, but definitely shorter than the current version of the BFR, which is 106 meters or 348 feet tall. Although rumor has it, it's probably already grown taller than that. Go figure. SLS's diameter, at least at the core of the vehicle, is that 8.4 meters or 27.5 feet wide, which is just slightly under the 9 meters or 30 feet wide BFR. Next, we've got thrust. The SLS's 5-segment boosters are stupid powerful. Combined, they're almost as powerful as the Saturn V rocket. Together, they produce 32,000 kilonewtons or 7.2 million pounds of thrust. Then, the core stage produces another 7,400 kilonewtons or 1.6 million pounds of thrust. Together, the first stage produces 39,400 kilonewtons or 8.8 million pounds of thrust. Dang. But how about the BFR? The BFR's 31 Raptor engines produce a whopping 52,700 kilonewtons or 11.8 million pounds of thrust. That's more than 2 Falcon Heavies combined. So how about capability? Sls Block One can put 70,000 kilograms or 150,000 pounds into low Earth orbit, which is only about half that of the BFR, which can take 150,000 kilograms or 330,000 pounds to low Earth orbit. Now, the really big question: cost. To date, the development cost of the SLS and the Orion capsule together is an astonishing $23.8 billion. And so far, the SLS hasn't launched yet, and the Orion capsule has only flown once on a heat shield test, and that lasted about 4 hours. But we're dealing only with the SLS rocket itself, which to date has cost around $12 billion. That being said, once all the systems are set in place, it looks like the cost per launch vehicle is estimated to be around $500 million. So I guess development costs aside, we'll use that $500 million number. Reluctantly. Now here's where things get silly. Industry estimates show the cost of the BFR to be around $335 million per vehicle. But the real game changer is the fact that the rocket can be reused over and over and over again, with the actual launch cost of only around $7 million. SpaceX even claims it'll be cheaper to launch the BFR than it was to launch their first little baby rocket, the Falcon 1, due to the primary cost of the BFR's flight just being the fuel. Say the BFR winds up not even being reusable at all, which I wouldn't bet on. Even a single $335 million launch vehicle with this kind of capability is still massively impressive. So let's not even do a cost per kilogram ratio of these two. I think that's besides the point. These two vehicles demonstrate where I feel like a lot of criticism comes in with NASA. With almost $12 billion put into a launcher that hasn't flown once, and with money being thrown around with every changing decision, it's easy to see why there's strong opposition to SLS. I think the problem's twofold. Number one, the SLS has no real clear-cut objective. If NASA and Congress once and for all said, we're developing a moon base and a lunar station in 5 years and we're gonna do it with the SLS, I think a lot more would get done. But what preluded SLS was the Ares 5 rocket, which was supposed to return us to the moon. And then that turned into SLS, which is destined for Mars, but then destined just for an asteroid. And then maybe now just one Europa mission, and other than that, who knows? Number two is the sunk cost fallacy. That's the idea that we've already poured $20 billion into this program. We might as well keep going and get something out of that investment rather than scrapping it. But what happens when it changes every other year and we never get to the point of actually seeing it fly? SLS was initially supposed to fly in 2018 with a cost of $7 billion. We're well beyond that now, and the end still isn't in sight. Despite many of the components being completed and most of the vehicle physically ready, we're still a couple years from even seeing it fly. But put me down as a card-carrying sunk cost fallaciest. We are so dang close to actually seeing it fly. At this point, I don't care if it flies once, twice, or 30 times. I need to hear those massive SRBs rip the sky apart, and I want to see those incredible RS-25s do some work instead of sitting on a shelf to rot somewhere. That being said, and this pains me to say this considering I have several good friends who work on SLS and Orion, with the inefficiencies, the budgetary problems, and the lack of a real clear and dry purpose, I think the SLS/Orion program needs to be reconsidered. Either it needs a very clear and concise purpose for its existence, or it needs not exist at all. And with the current budget of around $2 billion a year in development costs, NASA could launch 13 expendable Falcon Heavies a year, or 6 expendable BFRs. It's really hard to imagine a scenario where one SLS would be better than 13 Falcon Heavies or 6 BFRs. And again, I don't think it's really fair to compare programs purely on a per dollar amount like this, but I really do think this all needs to be reconsidered. It really feels like NASA and/or Congress are pushing to build a rocket to nowhere. I would much rather they have a clear mission drawn up first, then develop the rocket based on that mission. Not build a rocket and hope a mission comes up that needs it. Speaking to this note, SpaceX President Gwen Shotwell mentioned in a recent TED Talk the beauty of starting with a clean slate on a rocket. SpaceX's rocket design is physics-driven, first and foremost. There are no predefined requirements. No one's saying, hey, we have this engine sitting around, let's just use that. Or, this company already makes this component, use it. Okay. I'm done comparing rockets. Let's go ahead and wrap up with one final note to chew on. So, to summarize my thoughts on NASA building rockets. At one point, building super advanced rockets was something too risky, too out there, and too audacious for anyone but a massively funded government program could do. But now, rockets are becoming relatively easy to build, well understood, and most importantly, profitable. So my personal belief is, I think it's time NASA stops building rockets. The money put into the SLS and Orion program could do amazing things scientifically. With the annual budget currently poured into SLS, with each year, NASA could launch a Curiosity rover, or send another Cassini-class mission out to a gas giant, or even launch another Hubble Space Telescope. The universe is big. There's so much exploring to do. And that's what I think NASA's primary mission should be. To explore space, do the science that's pushing our understanding of the universe, and continue to employ the greatest minds to make massive breakthroughs in propulsion, habitats, exoplanets, humans' health in space, and even what it takes to live on other planets. And SpaceX, you just keep being SpaceX. Dream big, help bring that cost of space down, and someday complete your mission of making humans a multi-planet species. I know of a few organizations that'd love to help make that happen. NASA and SpaceX, as well as all other private companies, will continue to work together, and they'll literally broaden our horizons. It's not an us versus them thing. Space is only an us thing. As I say often, space is the one border us humans share. As soon as we get off this planet, it's no longer this neighborhood versus that neighborhood, this city versus that city, this state versus that state, this country versus that country. No, it's humans versus the universe. So what do you think? What do you see NASA's role being in the future? Do you think they should continue to work on the SLS or scrap it? Let me know if you have any other questions on this topic. What do you think NASA's role should be moving forward? Do you still think it's NASA versus SpaceX? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, I owe a huge thanks to my Patreon supporters for helping make this and other everyday astronaut content possible. I owe a super extra special thanks to those patrons in our exclusive Discord channel and our exclusive subreddit for helping me script and research. If you want to help contribute, please visit patreon.com/everydayastronaut. Thank you. Don't forget to check out my web store for shirts, hats, mugs, prints of rocket launches and other original artwork, and lots of other fun stuff at everydayastronaut.com/shop. And as always, all the music in my videos is original. Feel free to check it out at soundcloud.com/everydayastronaut. Tell a friend. Thanks everybody, that does it for me. I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, bringing space down to Earth for everyday people.